Hi and welcome to the December 1995 episode of Spotlight on UNBC. On this program, we're featuring the high-tech side of Canada's newest university. For the next half hour, we'll talk about fiber optic cables, interactive television, electron microscopes, and the World Wide Web. The news headlines portion of the show coming up later will feature some of the other recent news at UNBC. And of course, the December show would just not be the same without a visit from Santa Claus. But basically, this show is about technology. And next, we'll see how the information age is changing the way professors are teaching their classes. Here on Spotlight on UNBC for December 1995. I know this seems a little corny, but please don't exercise this option at home.
Men and women from throughout this region believed in the idea of a university of the North. They worked hard and they succeeded.
I can easily predict that these will be seen as the golden years of this university.
You and I have been involved in a process that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
You can value education and go elsewhere and get the same information. But if you value what you get out of it as a person and your input into it, then UNBC is an awesome experience.
I take pride in opening the university, and I wish you all, in whatever capacity you serve the cause of learning, a bright and successful future.
Welcome to the video head-end room, the high-tech heart of UNBC's very own information superhighway. The audio-visual material played on the VCRs and Laserdisc players in this room can be broadcast anywhere on the Prince George campus or at UNBC's regional teaching centers. All the instructor has to do is take this remote control, press play, and the material is broadcast on the television monitors in that particular classroom or laboratory. Fiber optic cable is the network for the system, and there's 23 kilometers of this stuff crisscrossing the Prince George campus. In fact, UNBC is the only university in North America to have fiber optic cable, servicing every classroom, every laboratory, every lecture hall, and every conference room on its campus.
The most high-tech U in production, you bet. You have bragging rights on that. You can go down to another university in British Columbia with a close name to yours, and their forte is applied science. And they will tell you there's no other institution in Canada, and they probably leading in North America for their ability on engineering and their ability for technology. But they don't have it, they don't use it. And they definitely don't use it in the scope that UNBC is using it. Without question, you have bragging rights on that.
BCTEL installed the Integrated Voice, Data, and Audiovisual System, which runs on a network of 23 kilometers of fiber optic cable. The audiovisual component of the system was supplied by Indiana-based Dynacom. The heart of the Dynacom system is the head-end room in the library building. But panels located in every classroom allow the instructors to control the video equipment in this room and have the information shown on monitors in the class.
The issue is that you start a facility from the ground up, and by starting from the ground up, it gave you the ability to put in the infrastructure to basically provide what I call information on demand services in the classroom or into the instructional area. Most universities are older and they're really rewiring their infrastructure to bring information into the classroom. Where here you've already got it. The infrastructure's there, where that information is from this centralized center you see here, or in a global or a state. You can bring that information into the room. No longer will your instructors look at or just utilize the context of, I'm going to use the chalkboard and an overhead projector. They're going to be able to, because of this infrastructure and because of what you put in place, they're going to be able to access multiple informations into that room, whether it be a video disc, a laser disc, whatever the item may be, they're going to be able to access that in the room, as well as create their own material. So to answer your question, I think the big key is you started with a facility from the ground up. I don't think there's another university in North America that has started that way and has gotten that type of infrastructure.
Well, the 21st century has arrived in the classroom. I mean, move over textbooks and chalkboards. Now, state-of-the-art information age technology allows teachers and students fingertip access to the world. Dynacom, the US-based world leader in multimedia information systems, is making educational applications the link of the future. Reading and writing have taken on a whole new meaning.
This Dynacom promotional video shows how the system works.
Dynalink centralizes everything an instructor needs in one location. An example, Notre Dame University's multi-million-dollar DeBartolo Hall, where an interface panel allows access to the world.
We have all the source equipment, which could be Laserdisc, floppy disk, VCRs, cameras, any type of multimedia device. Could even be computer systems that we service in the classroom.
All that machinery is found in a main media center, or as they call it, the head end. It's here an instructor can select up to 6 sources which he or she may show in class. A handheld remote controls the system.
Our system allows them to access multiple sources off of the same kind of remote. So they don't have 7 remotes in their room, and they don't have 7 different pieces of equipment, and they're trying to hook all that together. We let the instructors instruct.
A media specialist loads the selected program, and that single remote allows the professor the flexibility to walk freely around the room, stopping and starting the presentation as necessary. Local sources like a PC can also be integrated into the system.
The system at Notre Dame is virtually the same as what's in place at UNBC. The only difference is Notre Dame has it in one building. UNBC has it throughout its entire core campus. The advantage is that the UNBC system can broadcast what's happening in one part of the campus to any other building on campus. Biology professor Alex Hawley says that capability could revolutionize the way his subject is taught.
In so-called lab courses, science courses that have a lab, forever and a day there's been a distinction between what goes on in the lab and what goes on in the lectures. And we even have separate exams. You have a lab exam and you have the lecture exam or the textbook exam. But really, conceptually and philosophically, there is no difference in the information, the data, the knowledge, the science that you work with in the lab, and the science and the knowledge and the information you work with in the classroom. The reason for the distinction is a technological one, because in the lab, you want to do things and look at things using technology and techniques which aren't readily available in a lecture-type setting. So we separate the procedures, if you like, but the ideas are still the same. The problem is that it's difficult to get students and ourselves even to keep those ideas together. So you find yourself in a lecture saying, well, remember when we saw this in the lab, or, well, we're talking about this now, but you're going to see this in the lab. Or you find yourself in the lab saying, well, remember when we talked about this, and the ideas are bouncing back and forth. Far better if you could fully integrate these two procedures the way that the field and the knowledge is actually integrated. Well, what this system allows us to do is it allows us to do some of that. And the demonstration that we did, we were looking at physiological parameters that were monitored in individuals and people that were set up. Yes, in the lab we have this expensive equipment that requires a certain setting. It requires somebody knowledgeable to set it up and use it. So we have all those technical requirements. But by using this system and pumping it through the Dynacom system, we can take that live now and run it in a classroom setting. And rather than saying, well, in the lab we're going to see this, we can say, see that? And we can link the ideas and the concepts together in real time.
From a student perspective, obviously, as you look at this university, not only do you see the new buildings, the very, very nice buildings and those type of things, but you also are going to see that you can access information. You can really have different ways to enhance your education that aren't provided at other universities.
This is not your typical classroom at UNBC. This is one of 2 classrooms devoted to course video conferencing. In many respects, it's like any other classroom. It has tables and chairs, but it also has microphones on every table and televisions in the corners. About a dozen courses are being offered via video conferencing from the Prince George campus to Quesnel, Williams Lake, and Terrace. UNBC is the only university in the province to video conference that many courses and to more than one regional classroom simultaneously. Simply put, video conferencing is the next best thing to being there.
It's giving these people a chance to go to university where they would not have the chance because maybe of economics or, family. So yes, I think this is the way of the future, and I think as they better the system, you're going to see more and more students. And it's giving people a chance. Like, I just think it's excellent because it's giving, like I said, people a chance where they can actually go to university, without being here. I was at the university in January in '94 when we had a couple people in the French-Canadian Club and one person in, Chetwynd and one person here and two people in Quesnel, or one person, myself in Quesnel, and I was on the phone for 2 classes, 3 hours at a time. And then later we got technology and we went to a classroom and we sat around a little conference telephone, and so this is nothing. This is excellent. This is high tech now.
But what's it really like? Sure, it increases opportunity and interactivity, but people just aren't used to taking courses by television. Not only do the instructors have to learn how to use the system, but students have to learn how to learn from this kind of system.
When you sit down to read a book, you expect a book to be something. You go about learning from a book in one way. When you sit in front of your TV, you're not usually learning, you're usually letting your brain have a rest. And so I think it's hard for people to start to watch TV and expect themselves to learn. Now that happens when you show videos in a classroom. It always happens. They sit there and watch it, and after a while they realize, no, I should be taking notes. I'm supposed to be learning from this video, not just watching it. So I think they have to learn to do that. But I think we can probably facilitate that a little bit by a number of ways that you present the material. I think it makes a big difference. But they're probably not that different from what we need to learn in a classroom situation as well. The students always need to learn how to learn. And you have to overcome some of the expectations of the fact that this is in a box, and you're looking at it through a box. It's not just a box. You're supposed to talk back to the box.
It might be easy to assume that all of the courses originate from Prince George, but it's not true. UNBC professor Reg Horne teaches his geography class in Terrace, but it's available via video conferencing in Prince George. It's a geography class, but geography is exactly what this system overcomes.
Well, in describing how it works, I usually simply say, have you ever watched the national news? And where they have people at different sites, and they sit there and talk to each other, and I say, well, it's sort of like that, only we have classrooms at different sites instead of just one person. The technology has been developing over the past decade or so from first of all just telephones, and then to one-way television, and then eventually to this two-way television system. Most of the places where it's been used before have been simply for overload classes on the same site. This, I think, is one of the first ideas where the other class is actually 500 kilometers away.
It's actually quite enjoyable. Like one time, Reg was actually here in Prince George, and I was looking at the screen because I was so used to looking at the screen that even when he was here, I was still looking at the screen. It depends, I think, on the professor, and Reg is really good at lecturing, so he makes it interesting. So you don't even realize. The only time when you realize it is when you ask a question and it's a delay, and that is when you see there's a difference, there's something different going on. Yeah.
With the fiber optic infrastructure now in place, UNBC is now in the process of acquiring much of the equipment that will be used for teaching and research. And this is a good example. This is an electron microscope, and you can think of it as a $300,000 pair of really powerful eyeglasses.
You can actually look at features of that organisms that you never knew existed, because you now have such a powerful pair of eyes. A good example, for example, here, Rob, if you This is the type of root that you'd see if you use your own eyes. But with the fancy electrons, you can actually probe the matter so much more. Of course, you can use this for biology and for physics and chemistry. But for us at the NRES, we can start looking at many aspects of the biology of many of the organisms that make an ecosystem click. Anything from the very tiny to the very big. You know, we won't look at Douglas fir under a scanning microscope, but we can look at some portion of its wood, or the roots, or the fungi that makes the Douglas fir tick.
And it's had a lot to do with sort of revolutionizing in the last 10 or 15 years our interpretations of you know, how early humans were adapting to their environment, what kinds of foods they were eating, what kinds of tools they were using to process foods, and these sorts of things. So in that sense, it's had a huge impact, you know, these new kinds of technologies.
Richard Lazenby and Hugues Massicotte both use electron microscopy for different things, but both appreciate the opportunity to see things we've simply never seen before. UNBC has acquired the microscope through support from Alcan. The aluminum company contributed half of the $300,000 price tag, and the donation was matched by the province.
I can display on the screen here the specimen that we have inside. In this case, it is a metallographic fracture. Study of fractures is an important part of scanning electron microscopy. It shows you the morphology. It shows you the type of fracture. It can identify contaminants. It can allow you to look at the source of the fracture. Very useful information for studying existing materials and the development of new materials. This is the surface of a fracture. This specimen is about 2 or 3 millimeters in diameter. We can see one portion of it there. And we can then increase the magnification just by one keystroke. And it will, in fact, increase the magnification on a specific area of interest. And at any moment in time, I can decide to stop. Here, for example. And then I can reduce the contrast, increase the contrast to get the appropriate sort of information. We are now looking at about 3,000 times on the screen. And just to give you an idea of what that really means, a human hair would be approximately half the width of this screen, just to give you an idea of the sort of magnification we're at the moment. I'm now going to increase the magnification still further, and I'm going to move a certain feature. Another feature that may be of interest is the stage manipulation allows me to get a better idea about the topography of the sample. So we can see on that image that there is a certain three-dimensional quality, and this is because the way the electrons irradiate the sample, you get depth of field, a very high depth of field. However, if I tilt the specimen, you can see this on the screen now, you can see that we immediately get a better feel for the three-dimensional quality of the sample. And I'm mechanically tilting the sample back and forth, and that is an important feature of such a microscope.
I remember using such a system perhaps 15 years ago on an older microscope, and it took us perhaps 15-20 minutes just to set up the focus of the specimen. It was almost blurry. Well, yesterday with the demonstration, you basically have to move the mouse 2 inches, and it autofocuses your images, just like that. So, you know, now you can spend much more time analyzing the material that you have at hand rather than, you know, trying to play with the fanciness of the buttons and, you know. So I think it would be wonderful. We can probe the soil. And one of the big things with soil is that it's dark out there. You don't see who's playing the game, you know. So with a scope like this, you can illuminate some aspect of the biology of the soil, be they bacteria, fungi, protozoan, the small things, the itsy-bitsy of the ecosystem.
What kind of Although this episode of Spotlight on UNBC is featuring the high-tech side of Canada's newest university, the news headlines portion of the show will feature some of the other recent news at UNBC. Of course, the big news across the country has been the Quebec referendum and the many developments which followed. UNBC hosted a post-referendum public forum with faculty experts discussing the ramifications of the close no vote. The heart of any university is its library, and the Royal Bank of Canada has given UNBC's heart a good shot of adrenaline. The bank has created a $150,000 endowed library fund for the ongoing and long-term acquisition of library materials. And finally, a week in November was Safety Awareness Week at UNBC, with displays and activities centered around 5 main themes: safety in the workplace, personal safety, emergency services, safer or no sex, and alcohol and drug awareness. Spotlight on UNBC is a good example of how television can be used as a way to communicate information, but it's not the only one. Print's been around for a long time, things like newspapers, magazines, and brochures, and radio's been in existence now for about 75 years, but television is the newest. I grew up with television, but there's a whole new generation of people who are going to be growing up with a thing called the World Wide Web, and it's what people often refer to when they speak of surfing the net. This is an example of it right here. This is UNBC's homepage, our presence on the World Wide Web. It has information on things like UNBC programs, the regional offices, faculty and staff research profiles, the history of UNBC. Basically, this information about UNBC can be accessed by people from around the world. And here are some examples. So far, there have been 1,700 people from the UK to access the information on that homepage. About 664 from Germany, 858 from Australia, 179 from Austria, 153 from Belgium. Chile, 54 people have accessed this information, 41 people from Iceland, 14 people from the United Arab Emirates, all the way down to 1 person from the Slovak Republic and 1 person from Colombia have so far accessed the information about UNBC, which is on this homepage. And here I'll click on Further Information Sources, and I see that even Spotlight on UNBC has a worldwide presence. It really is the new mode of communication for the 21st century. The real power of the World Wide Web lies in the possibility of finding a world of information at your fingertips. 1 minute you could be at UNBC, the next at the University of California. UNBC English professors David Dowling and Stan Beeler have created a homepage called The Ideas of the University. It has an index with a range of university programs and literally provides students with the opportunity to find out more about those programs from the professors who actually teach them.
I think we were one of the first people in the world really to take this medium seriously and to put serious content up onto the web. Up until then, it seemed to me it was rather like having a very glamorous, glossy production phone book full of classifieds. Basically, that's what it was. Very raw data, factual information. You could find the route of the subway system in Madrid. You could find the weather in Singapore. But that was the limit of it. So we've put ideas up there. That's why we chose that title. And the next step, I think, is to put even more content, if you like, up onto the web. So the next step, as far as we're concerned, is to put courseware on the web. And that'll be our next project. The BC government is already very interested in that, so is the Open Learning Agency. This is a way of providing students anywhere in the world, and particularly in the regions of BC which are hard to get to, providing those students with all the materials for a university course which they can study at their own leisure, in their own studies, in their own kitchens, in their own time.
The computers that they're selling now, as long as they can be linked through the web, they can do an awful lot that even 2 years ago would have been impossible or only possible for people in things like the MIT Media Research Lab. Now we can do them in fairly cheap workstations. So it's quite possible that we could set up labs or have students work out of their own homes and still have immediate online interaction, as well as the delayed look at it, deal with it when you want to.
But what we'd like to do is, and a lot of people in the world are doing this now, is to use the computing power, as you say, to make that process much more subtle, to make the material that's still lying in front of the student actually alter to fit the student as the student comes up towards it. So the computer program will be sensitive to the abilities of the student. If the student is tending to get certain things right, then that kind of information will fade out of the picture because the student doesn't need that anymore as the student moves through the rest of the course. The stuff that the student is finding difficult will be fed more and more to the student in a more and more accessible way. There has to be a way of allowing the student to affect the input that they're getting, but at the same time, and I think this is a really important balance, to keep in our minds the fact that we are instructors, that we have been trained and that we know stuff, and that we can shape the information in ways that make more sense to a student than simply opening the doors to the shopping mall and saying to the student, go shop. Because the new teaching materials will be virtual, they will be imminent, they will be accessible at any time the student wants, then I think it's a great breakthrough in teaching technology. You have to keep that real-life contact somewhere in there, though. You can't give that away. The computer can't do it all.
Throughout this episode of Spotlight on UNBC, we've seen some interesting technology, but the December show would just not be complete without a visit from Santa Claus. In the past, Santa's come down from the North Pole to give us some UNBC Christmas gift ideas, but this year we have something a little bit different. As universities across the country prepare for tough financial times ahead, it seems Jolly St. Nick is doing the same, as we find out in this exclusive interview. Santa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, little Robbie. How are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
A little worse for the wear, a little tired.
You look terrible.
Oh, Santa's very, very tired. Very, very tired.
What's going on?
It's been very difficult in the North Pole. We've been under budget cuts for the last
No.
while. Yes, it's been difficult. We've had to, you have to understand that the number of kiddies in the world is going up, and the number of resources we have is limited.
Well,
it's limited.
Expected, I think.
The transfer payments are reducing and all of that. It's been very difficult and very difficult. We've had to trim down middle management a little bit, just like industry. Yeah, we've let some elves go. That happened last year. Some of them showed up here, actually. Now they're working at UNBC, I see. So I was walking around. Not as elves, of course. No. But
as deans, I understand.
That's well, I can't say. Santy can't say. But we don't have it as bad as some do. Oh, the Easter Bunny. He's not taking it well. He's gone it's been terrible. He's gone the Klein-Harris route of cutting budgets, and he's not handling the stress well. There's revolts everywhere, and well, we don't have anything like that. That's all I can say.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, no.
Well, can we still expect a Merry Christmas?
Certainly. We'll always meet the expectations. We have a very active unit going on right now up in the North Pole. It's been going well. The elves are very, very busy. Very, very busy. It's been good, though. It's been very good.
Well, what are some of the most asked for gifts this year, 1995?
Well, I don't know about some more asked for gifts. A lot of people would like to be on Spotlight at UNBC.
Well, that goes without saying.
That goes without saying, yes. I get a lot of that. There's a young lad in Quebec, little Jacques Parizeau, who's looking for his own country. That's not that easy. I don't think we're going to. That's very difficult. Very difficult. It's not going to be that easy to come up. He's been asking for that for quite a while, though. So it's since he was just a wee lad. Yeah, it was. He formed his own country with the Lego sets. I remember that was very difficult. But Santa's doing well. Santa's doing well. You, on the other hand, Robbie, will have to wait until Christmas to find out what's in store for you.
Give me a hint. What do you see in your crystal ball?
What do I see? Well, Santi doesn't have a crystal ball. But you've been naughty.
Oh.
You've been nice. And I'm just balancing the figures now to see what you get. Okay. But we're not sure yet. We'll have to, I can't tell you ahead of time. There's an oath. There's a North Pole oath. Yeah.
Sort of a Hippocratic and the North Polocratic.
Hippocratic, North Polocratic. No, it's just an oath, Robbie. It's very simple. We don't have anything fancy for it. That's all it is.
Okay.
I've enjoyed walking around UNBC. It's been very nice.
Good.
Very, very nice.
Good.
Yes. Good. Yes.
Well,
very
I hope
nice.
you have a Merry Christmas, Santa.
Well, happy holidays to you too, Robbie.
Oh, politically correct, eh?
Bye, Robbie. Whee!